Hey, and welcome back to the Cellarcast, episode 64. This is the second time that I'm recording this intro because I said something about the Nintendo 64, and the joke didn't work out, and then my brain hit a brick wall, and I was like, I should probably restart that. I am happily coming to you after one of the worst heat waves that California has seen in years. We had a couple straight days of over 100-degree weather, which was really fun. It was very fun to have that and also be in the warmest room in my house. Funny story about that. So we have like the air conditioning going, and it's not like an AC unit, it's just through the ventilation. So it's kind of weak in my house. The AC is kind of weak in my house because everything in my home is out of date and not up to code by any stretch of the imagination, because most of it is from the 70s and was built by my grandfather, who doesn't know anything about anything. So very weak air conditioning. But hey, if I keep my windows and my door closed for like 5 hours and I let it run, it'll cool down a little bit. So I'm finally feeling a little bit cooler. And then I hear the vents going, and I'm doing something. I'm working on something. So I don't really pay any mind to it because the vents have been going on and off all day as the house gets cooler and then warms up a bit and they have to cool it down again. But a few minutes go by and I sniff a bit and I'm like, that has a smell to it. That smells like a heater. That's got that heater smell to it. I think it's the gas is where that comes from. It's that very noticeable, that sounds like a heater going. And so I get up, I walk over to the vents. I can't quite feel anything super strong come from the vents quite yet, but I leave my room, I walk down the hall to the thermostat, and it was up to 80. It was up to 80 degrees in the middle of it was 105 out. In the middle of one of the worst heat waves my state has seen in years. And someone decided, and I know who it was, someone decided, let me fuck around with it and move it up to 80. Why? And it was my fucking grandfather. It was him. He's the only one who fucks with shit. No one else in the house. I don't even have to list them. No one else fucks with shit. He's the only one. Oh my god. Dude, fuck, dude. He's lucky California has strict gun laws. Jesus Christ. I was losing my shit, so I knocked it all the way down to like a 60. I was like, God fucking damn. Couldn't believe that shit. Our fridge is broken. Like my brother explained it to me. It was some mechanical part in it just busted, and from the heat. And we're not surprised because the unit is like 20 years old. So we had to move all of our food to a different refrigerator that we have downstairs. There's like 4 refrigerators in this house. Nothing. If I like walked you through just a room by room explanation of my home, your jaw would drop. The most fucking loony bin 2 old people who had way too much time to just hoard shit and use zero fucking logic to arrange anything in their home. Oh my god. But hey, besides that, we're over it. So it's We're finally down to like, highs of 80 degrees or so, which, it's hot. You don't want to go out in the beating sun with no sunscreen and that, but oh my, much more manageable than over 100. It's funny, we say like sub 30 or something like that, right? Say like sub 30 degrees. We never say like super 100. I don't know. We're not used to saying that. We don't have I guess you would say super. It is the opposite of sub, but in like a comparative sense. But we never say that. I don't know why. I guess we just say over. But we don't say under for sub. Maybe because sub is one less syllable? That's so curious to me. Yeah, I remember back in Chicago, used to get subarctic in the winter in February. The worst month, February. I feel bad for everything that happens in February because it's like yet the shittiest month. Like, oh, Valentine's Day, I guess, but like that's for people who are in relationships. Like, anyone can celebrate Christmas. Muslims can celebrate Christmas. Fuck it. But like single people, they're not going to celebrate Valentine's Day. They're not going to celebrate Valentine's Day. Come on. That's just sad, It's like if you're it's only a holiday for like a specific part of the population, right? Man, how pissed do you think black people were at the end of the civil rights movement? And they were like, all right, black people, you're getting your own history month. They go, wow, an entire month dedicated to celebrating our history? That's incredible. What month is it? February. What the fuck? What the fuck? I'd be pissed. Jesus. Just can't win. It's going to be 40 acres and a mule. And you get a whole month that it's February. It's the one month that's shorter than all the other months. It's the only one that's shorter. That's the one you gave. They got the discount month. Oh my god. No comments last time. No questions. We had a comment. I don't know what it meant. It might have been spam. I'm not sure. What? Someone commented the word promosum. What is promosum? Promosum meaning often used on YouTube to promote videos found in spam comments. Oh, from Urban Dictionary. What? Is this a thing? People who want to help increase your social following. Oh, it's for algorithm? Oh, well, thank you very much. I guess it's a bot. What is promosum? I wonder if there's some kind of deep... Wait, huh? Ooh, wait, hang on. I was gonna say, I wonder if there's some deep kind of conspiracy, like that Elsa Gate shit, like Promosum Gate. What is Promo SM on Quora? It is a website that is against the YouTube terms of service to use. It operates on a massive basis to bot subs onto one's YouTube account. Huh. Promo SM is one of the more popular social media marketing platforms. They sell marketing services for most social media websites. Oh, weird. So is this so there's a bot. So was this guy because there's nothing on this person's channel. This just seems like a bot channel. Joined September 2021. Doing a little investigation. And it's in an alternate font, so I assume that's to get around YouTube spam filter. Huh. Excuse me. So why would it be on mine? Because I don't pay for that. Dude, you would know if I paid for sub bots. That's so curious. Did it? What is the social media tool Promo SM? It has become progressive. Is this from a? Oh no! This is from a person who's trying to promote it. Oh my God! Who's this guy? There's this guy. He has a website. Your MSP marketing partner, and it's like him in like an orange striped polo. He looks like he teaches at a community college. And he's like promoting, use Promo SM to boost your, what is MSP? Managed services? What is this? That's so that's so odd. So just spam. This reminds me of something that I discovered, I want to say a year ago? Jeez, it's been that long? Maybe, I don't know. So I went on this little rabbit hole where it started off with, like, obviously because I'm doing editing. So when I'm editing something, I'll have an idea, like, oh, I want to pull this off. I want to do this thing, some trick or something like that. But I don't know exactly how to do that, so I'll just look up a little tutorial. I'll try and find something to figure out how to get a certain effect or transition or something like that. And per the YouTube algorithm, watching those will then get me recommended things like, advice for editing YouTube videos. And I was curious, so I clicked on a couple of them. They seemed like they had pretty decent view counts and from fairly reputable channels. And to be honest, a lot of them were actually pretty helpful. There were some tricks that I use very often in videos now that I learned from these kinds of videos. It was stuff like the best or the most applicable one, I guess, that I used the most is just the J cut, as it's called, which is just where, so say if you can go watch like any of my last couple dozen videos, and if you just see any footage of like me talking, if you'll notice, when I cut between like takes, the audio comes in a little bit before the video cuts. That's what's called a J cut, and it's because cutting both the audio and video at the same time is kind of jarring, and you end up a lot of times in a weird situation where at the start of the take you're like just kind of staring at the camera and it's kind of awkward while you're just like waiting to like, you're like mentally preparing to say the line, and so you kind of cut through that, I guess. Like, so the what a J cut I'll usually do is I'll just I'll finish the line and I'll say like, okay, that's about as much as I'll say for this take, and then I'll finish it and I'll make sure to stare at the camera for a few seconds of just dead space for the audio for the next line to come in, which could be a little awkward if you start noticing it, but because you have this new auditory information coming in of the next audio line, you like barely even notice it unless you're looking for it. So it's just it's a much smoother like transition from one line to the next. It's much less jarring. That's a tip that I learned from like some of these like editing tips for YouTube videos type things. Not everything I found super useful or not super useful for my content in particular, but some of it was like very genuinely helpful. And then as per the YouTube algorithm, from there I started getting recommended, like, you know, from how to edit YouTube videos to how to make it on YouTube, or how to grow your YouTube channel or something like that. And there's a great video by Super Eye Patch Wolf about how scammy and just bullshit most of these are. Most people who are trying to sell you a method to success, you're their method to success because they're fleecing you for money. Because if you look at other stuff that they've done, most of the time they themselves are not particularly successful, or they try to sell you on success that they themselves have not achieved because they're looking for suckers. So most of these videos I skipped over, but there was one that caught my eye. And the title and thumbnail, it was something like how to make money on YouTube with other people's content. Or like by reposting videos. And I looked at it and I had to do a double take because that was such a strange, I don't know if, I guess that is such, the idea of reposting video, just straight up reposting someone's video, one, most people consider that pretty unethical. Two, it's also potentially breaking copyright laws, right? Like, you could get a DMCA claim for that. There's a whole system on YouTube in case someone uploads your video that you can find it and you can have it struck down. I haven't had to do that yet because I'm a teeny weeny little channel, but that exists, right? So to have someone so boldly, so brazenly put out how to make money on YouTube by reposting videos really caught me by surprise. I had to check my eyes to make sure that was really what it said. And out of curiosity, once it was like, oh, that is really what this is, I'm like, there's no way, right? There's no way this is actually what this guy's talking about. So I click on the video and I watched it. So maybe I'm the sucker. But I started watching it, and it's this guy, and he's explaining this strategy where you take like it was something like meditation sounds or nature sounds or sounds of the ocean, something like that, because it's really big now, because people, while they're meditating, they want to put some background noise to help them kind of like zen out. So just rip those sounds, get some stock footage of like a rolling ocean or a sunset or something like that, and then just extend it to 3 hours and post that under like and just fill the title, the description, everything with keywords, and then build up to the point where you can monetize, and then like start running ads on it, which is like, that's not how Zen things should be. I guess maybe at the start, but whatever. And I could not believe it. Just the audacity of this guy to just say it so plainly, like, yeah, this is just a thing you can do, when it's like that. No, first of all, what the fuck? Second of all, this is so scammy, and I'll explain it why. I feel like I shouldn't have to explain it why, but to break it down, right? This is a short-term money-making scheme. This is practically money laundering. This is not an empire that's built to last, or really even built to grow. Like, straight up, even if you do that, it's such a crapshoot if you get anything, because that kind of content is so interchangeable. Maybe if it was like a new market that was hot, and you happen to already be doing that, and you got picked up, then yeah, sure. But like now, there's a million of those, this type of content. This kind of like, that's the problem with low effort content, is that much of it is very interchangeable. Is very rarely is there any kind, low effort is maybe not the right way to put it, because you can put low effort into something like ProZD, the guy who does he does short little skits. Every single thing he does is just filmed on like his phone. He doesn't even like make thumbnails or anything, and he's fucking hilarious, and I love his skits. And then I have it's just filmed on like his phone, and he plays every character, and sometimes he has like a wig on to show that it's a different character, and they're all under like a minute. And I'm sure that he himself would say like, yeah, he's not moving mountains to put these things out. But like, he's popular because he's funny, and like his ideas are funny, and the way he delivers things is funny, and he comes up with these entertaining, very short ideas. Like, he got started on technically on Tumblr for voice acting, but I think the skits really started on Vine. And he's just a guy who's really good at coming up with very concepts that are very funny, as long as they're not like too long. Like, you couldn't make a movie or like a 10-minute video out of most of his concepts, but for like a 20-second thing, it's great, and that's like the format it works in. So it's not like the most, you know, he's not, I don't think he's like sweating over it. His main thing is like he does voice acting, but like, he's like a personality. There's like some artistry. There's like some heart, is what I'm saying, into what he does. Like, he obviously thinks it's funny, and this is an idea he had, and he's selling it. Compared to like, I'm gonna post some audio that I found and some stock footage over it. It's extremely, even if it does get some kind of success, it's so utilitarian that like, your channel barely means anything to anyone. You have like no significance. That's like it's not a long-term, it's not anything you could do long-term. No one's going to be going, oh my god, it's relaxing Zen sounds 1515. Excuse me. You're pretty much just banking on being a flash in the pan who can get some engagement money. Like, that's, you can't make a career out of it, is what I'm saying. On top of the fact that it's just like, if you even get any kind of success, which is so unlikely, it was just ridiculous to me. Like, I was in disbelief watching this guy just, without a shred of irony, explain this scheme. And then I go to check the other stuff on his channel. So like, that video was called like the how to make money on YouTube by reposting videos 2022 or something like that. So I scroll down on his channel a bit, and I see how to make money on YouTube by reposting videos 2021. And I was like, no, there's no way. It's almost the same thumbnail, the same title, just with the year changed, almost the same length. And I go and click on the video. Besides like a couple things that he like redid to like update it for the next years, almost the same thing. I could not believe it. But you know what? At least he practices what he preaches. At least he's actually he's committed to reposting videos, including his own. There is a truly unbelievable world of like, of like hustle, YouTuber, online influencer hustle culture. The hustle thing is, I don't know, it's so bad. It's so like, obviously you need to be, there's a lot of ways, like, if you're like independent or you're self-employed, like there's a lot of upsides to it, there's a lot of downsides to it. You gotta be self-motivated in order to do that as well. But I don't know, man, some people just take it way too extreme. I don't think a job should kill you. I don't know. Maybe if you signed a waiver when you made a YouTube account, that would. You know what the other funny thing is? Whenever you see, because I've been watching a lot of CoffeeZilla, who, if you don't know, is he talks about like I love his channel. He mainly does things about financial scams and things like that. Like a lot of like influencers who do they're selling scams, or they're selling some kind of fraud to their audience, or they pretend to have more money than they actually do, or they're promoting a certain thing like a betting website when like they actually just bet with money that their sponsor gives them to promote it. Just all that underhanded kind of stuff. And he also does some stuff on like historical scams and things like that. And that's how I've been exposed to a lot of this kind of like, I'm starting Hustler Academy. Isn't it the Andrew Tate one? Hustler Academy? Like, dude, you can't sign up for that and be unaware that you're getting scammed. There's no way. That's how I've become aware of a lot of this stuff, because I just don't care. And the funny thing, there's no deep point to this. The funny thing I always notice is that in all of these videos, whenever they want to show, like, I'm my own boss, I'm working, I'm making money, it's always just like a guy on a laptop. That for some reason that's like the visual shorthand. That's just become this thing. Like whenever they want to show making money or being self-employed, it's just a guy with a laptop. What does he do? What are you doing on that laptop? It's this vague like, oh, like, yeah, I can picture myself. Like people who have it is perfect, because it perfectly targets, I guess, the audience that they're going for, because it's people who don't actually know. I don't know, they're naive or something. Like they don't know what working looks like. They have this image of making money and what they want to do. They want money, and they have this image of having money, and they're like, how do I get money? Oh, I work. But the work is like an afterthought. So in their mind, they're like, oh yeah, I'd be like, I'd be sitting in a recliner with a laptop and do stocks or something. Manage small business. I don't know, emails. Yeah, but the money though, like that's what they're really thinking about. All you need to do, like the actual work, they're not trying to sell you on the work, right? They're not trying to sell you on hey, it's going to be a grind to like make a lot of money. It's usually how it works. They're trying to sell you on having the money. So they just kind of skim over the real nitty gritty with just, hey, here's a guy on a laptop. Such a funny, like, psychological thing. the just appeal to the fantasy. Hey, if you didn't notice, I started a clips channel, just because I thought it would be a more accessible way to consume the podcast. So I'm just gonna plug it. I'll probably like start linking to it in the description or something. I should probably add it to like the sidebar on the channel, on this channel. I added it to the main channel, but yeah. So I'll just probably be I'm trying to like clip stuff, just because not everyone wants to commit 2 hours to watching a podcast to some fucking guy they've never heard of. So you can go check that out if you're short on time. I wanted to talk about a game I've been playing. Should I talk about the game, or should I talk about... I want to talk about this next, actually. I usually save the game discussion for near the end. I want to talk about a little story I found from VGC, Video Games Chronicle. This is from a couple weeks ago. I forgot to talk about it, but it's not like super timely, so you can, I mean, it's not necessarily old news. I didn't really see anyone talking about this, curiously enough. So this is from Video Games Chronicle, courtesy of Chris Scullion. It's called Capcom wanted Resident Evil 7 to be a live service game with microtransactions. Because of course they did. And the subheader is, but executive producer Jun Takeuchi says the development team fought back. This is a really interesting article. So Shinji Mikami, the he's like creator of, is that, I guess he's the creator, producer, longtime producer. He's like the Inafune of Resident Evil. Take that as you will. I didn't mean that in a bad way. Necessarily. I don't know Resident Evil enough to have an opinion on Shinji Mikami, except for that really funny interview where he said, there was that one interview, remember that time when Resident Evil 4, which was, Resident Evil, always a PlayStation series, first 3 games came out on PlayStation, and everyone thought it was a lock and load. And then suddenly, Resident Evil 4 comes out on the GameCube first, and there's no news about a potential PlayStation 2 version. And people are like, hey, is it going to be out on PS2? And Shinji Mikami said, I swear to God, like almost pretty much verbatim, he goes, I will cut my head off with a chainsaw before Resident Evil 4 leaves the GameCube. With a chainsaw. It couldn't... he thought about it. And you know what? You know what happened? Like 8 months later, the game came out on PS2. And he didn't cut his head off. What a liar. The worst thing about Shinji Mikami was the hypocrisy. Yeah, maybe it was just and the thing is, 8 months? 8 months is like more than enough time. Like, they had to have been working on it for a while at that point already. Like, he had to have known, right? A port doesn't just happen. He had to have known. So maybe it was like a weird, like, foreboding thing. Like, what if he really did? What if he was, like, found in his home? His head cut off. Actually, it would probably be pretty hard to cut your own head off with a chainsaw. Because what if he, like, had to set up? What if, like, he was found in his home with, like, in, like, his garage or something with, like, a really convoluted, like, Rube Goldberg machine that was set up where, like, he pushes a ball into motion and the ball, like, rolls down a little ramp, and it hits, like, a thing that knocks over, and it, like, knocks over a bunch of dominoes, and the dominoes fall onto this, like, button that releases a string that releases a balloon that flies out to this thing, and then it all culminates in, like, this perfect spot where he's standing for a chainsaw to fall directly onto his neck and cut his head off. Holy shit. Do you think that's ever happened? Do you think anyone's ever killed themselves with a Rube Goldberg machine? I have to look this up. Rube Goldberg suicide machine. There's a search result. Oh wait, there's a song. There's a song called that. What is this? Inside the surprisingly dark world of Rube Goldberg machines? What is this? It's a Vice article. This is a long... Oh, it's a... This is an article about Rube Goldberg. Okay. This is a long article. Anyway, I don't know what that's about. Rube Goldberg. Yeah, no, there's no. I don't want the song. Let me just narrow down the search. I don't. Someone left there's a post on shower thoughts that says if I was going to commit suicide, I'd use an elaborate Rube Goldberg style suicide machine just to imagine the look on everyone's face. Hey, someone leaves a comment on there. The elaborate Rube Goldberg machine with the purpose of ending your life is actually the universe itself. Each atom and quark is doing its tiny part to lead to your inevitable demise. Every spinning asteroid, each falling raindrop, the herds of wildebeest, the buzzing of every fly. Oh my god. That's really funny. It's actually really funny. Like, I guess that is just the equivalent of just having bad luck. But I'm talking about like a specific, like, imagine them finding your body. Oh my god, that would be so funny. I should go out like that. Jesus. What the fuck was I talking about? Right, so Shinji Mikami interviewed on his YouTube channel the producer of Resi 7, Jun Takeuchi. Let's see. In a new discussion with Shinji Mikami on the official Biohazard YouTube channel, Jun Takeuchi explained how Capcom was putting pressure on the development team to implement such features in the game until Takeuchi was asked to join the project and scrapped those plans. So basically, while they were... So I guess Takeuchi wasn't the initial producer, and they were like... Capcom was like, I want you to put in microtransactions. I want to be able to buy, like, gems, you know, to pay for extra bullets or something. When we started work on Resident Evil 7, we went back to... Excuse me. What is horror anyway? I talked about it a lot with the Resident Evil 7 director Koshi Nakanishi. So what are we going to do? We talked about that stuff even before starting work on Resident Evil 7, actually. And right around that time, there was a big push at Capcom, a big marketing push, saying we have to make the game players are asking for. which is code for the game that... You know, it's really funny that when... Oh man, I'm thinking about this and it's making me upset. The game players are asking for, I guess, you know, when you only make games that are like that are just filled with microtransactions, and those are the only games that people can buy from you, I guess those would be the games people are asking for. Well, they're buying it. It's like, yeah, because you don't make anything else. Like, I remembered this bizarre period back in like the 7th gen. Back me up in the comments if you guys remember this. There was this weird period, and honestly, Resident Evil is a good is a good barometer for this, because remember how Resident Evil got way more action oriented, like really peaking with 6, right? Where it's like it's barely a horror game from what I understand. There was this period of time in the 7th generation where big AAA publishers, like I'm talking, maybe not 7th gen, like it started in the 7th gen. I remember thinking about this in like 2014, where big publishers just decided that people didn't want to buy horror games anymore. They just decided that. They were like, and there was nothing to influence this. It wasn't like horror games had been on the decline or anything. Horror games did pretty much as well as they always did. You know what I think it was? I think it was fucking Modern Warfare. I'm gonna say it. I think it was Modern Warfare. I think when that game came out, it blew. It had such a cultural presence that every like, and it came out in this specific time right? Because Halo also had a huge cultural presence. Doom also had a huge cultural presence. But those games came out before a lot of big publishers were dominated by people from outside the games industry who had been in like physical goods, marketing and stuff like that, finance. I think when Modern Warfare hit, this is just I have got nothing to back this up besides just observation. I think when Modern Warfare hit, all of these new people who didn't really know anything about games or gaming history or market long-term like trends in marketing or the culture of the gaming audience or something like that, they were like, oh, this game made the most money ever. Everything that's not that, we should just do. So there was just like this hyper focus on we need to recapture the moment of Modern Warfare. And I think it led to this pushing aside of for a lot of publishers, not everyone, of course, you'll always find exceptions, but for a lot of publishers, it was just this pushing aside of every other genre because it didn't match what they were going for, which was we need Modern Warfare again. Obviously, I don't need to. I feel like I shouldn't have to reference, even though it feels so long ago. Thankfully, I shouldn't have to reference the deluge of COD clones that came out in the 7th gen, and even the 8th gen. But I feel like they saw this and they were like, oh, everything else, people don't want that. What they really want is Modern Warfare. And so games just started getting like, AAA games specifically, started just catering more and more towards that kind of an appeal. And there was just this thing where like horror games did not traditionally fit into that. So either get more action oriented, which you saw with Resident Evil, you saw it with Dead Space, you even saw with Silent Hill a little bit. Later Silent Hill games were more, not all of them, but were more action oriented, more combat heavy. Maybe not. Yeah, action oriented might not be the best word. Book of Shadows, Book of Memories. You know the one I'm talking about. It's all red. Yeah, it's this weird period where they were like, yeah, people don't want horror games for no reason. Horror games did not decline really at all. They were pretty much going the same as they'd always been, but just it wasn't as big as COD. So yeah, we don't want it. People just don't want it. And it's like that stupid thing Nintendo does where they put out like people like, oh, we want a new Chibi Robo game, and then they put out a game that has like nothing that people liked about Chibi Robo, and no one buys it, and they're like, guess people don't want Chibi Robo. And it's like, you literally like sabotaged yourself. Did you want that to happen? That's what happened with horror games. It's like no one's buying horror games. It's like, yeah, because you're not making them. And then 100 indie games filled that void because people actually like horror games. People were just like, oh, I guess people like them. Yeah, you fucking idiot. Jesus Christ. Getting back to the interview, Takeuchi continues, so we were being told, make this, make that. It was really hard on the directors at the time. Online multiplayer this, downloadable content that. Ongoing service games, microtransactions, make a Resident Evil game that ticks all those boxes. Seriously, there were so many demands, those poor directors. Finally, our president, Kenzo Sugimoto, stepped in. He'd heard about all the unsuccessful attempts at that point. So this is one of those unforgettable moments for me. That's the other thing, is that so many of these things that are supposedly like the most revenue, none of them work. There's like a couple. There's some like golden horses that get through, and they actually like they use this model and they milk it to the last drop. And there's like there's an ocean of imitators we can just make the worst, most shallow game ever and fill it with microtransactions and as many different revenue streams as possible, and that'll be good. That's the safe bet, right? No, it wasn't. None of these work. God, people who work in like big. There's so many people who get paid so much money to be bad at their jobs. And just if you talk to the average consumer, just the average person, you'd be like, that looks like shit. I wouldn't buy that. I don't know anyone who'd buy that. I feel like I pride myself in having generally a pretty good sense for when a thing's going to be successful or unsuccessful. And mine is, I wouldn't buy that. So I think like, oh, I wouldn't buy that. But I can imagine people who would, or I know people who would. I'm like, yeah, it'll probably at least do decent. And if I look at something, I remember looking at the Ouya. When did the Ouya come out? Like 2013? When did that come out? 2013. I was 11. I was 11 looking at the Ouya, and I was like, that thing's gonna flop hard. And it did. Because even at 11 years old, I was like, I wouldn't want that. What does it have? What does it offer anyone? I don't know anyone who would want that. I can't think of anyone who would want that. Unless you're just super hyped about the technology, but that's such a niche market. You just look at, I don't know. I pride myself on that. Back to the interview. Okay, I'll try not to jump in with tangents for a bit. It was January 4th, the first working day of the new year. The president called me to his office. Resident Evil 7 is in pretty bad shape. Takeuchi-kun, step in and help make it. So that's how I ended up working on Resident Evil 7. Takeuchi explained that when he then joined the team, he pushed to enlist Nakanishi as the game's director. Then set about trying to remove the live service and microtransaction features Capcom was trying to implement. He just started taking it out. That's what's so funny about it, is that, like, you can just take shit out if you want. Like, you don't have to do any of this shit. Maybe you can get fired or something if you don't bow down to the demands of the finance department. Because honestly, so when something happens like this, like when a bunch of microtransactions get implanted into a game, oftentimes that people just say marketing as a broad term. That's not really marketing necessarily. That usually comes from finance, because finance wants the most revenue streams. They're just looking for the money. And if you put as no money revenue streams in the product as possible, then we can make more money because there's more opportunities to make money. So it's usually coming from finance. Marketing will, I feel like something like an online multiplayer thing might actually come from marketing, because that's something you could put on the box, right? Something like that. But this comes from finance. Doesn't make a huge difference, but hey, at least know who you should be mad at. He continues, quote, quote, first, we decided that Resident Evil's roots are in horror. Resident Evil's roots are in horrors. We talked about it a lot. The idea of multiplayer got killed off pretty quickly. If we could properly put it together, we could make an exciting horror multiplayer game, but we didn't really have any good ideas, so we set it aside. How cogent. What a good decision. We went down the list, chopping them out until we had marketing's worst nightmare. A regular old single-player horror game. That's what we ended up with. The resulting game was an overwhelming critical success, earning a score of 86 on review aggregation site Metacritic. In June, Resident Evil 7, recurrent gen remakes, blah, blah, blah. That is so... Oh, God. Like, imagine if that was Resident Evil 7. Like, I think all the hype would have been lost. And this is a problem with corporate cultures. I don't know how much this applies in Japan, because as far as I know, in Japan, they tend to have more people on for long term, but at the same time, they're tend to be very staunch, and we do it our way. in the West, at least, like for instance, in an American corporation, I think I talked about this before, but like people move in and out of positions very quickly. People move in and out pretty fast, like within a couple of years. So there's just not a lot of like people. Someone will make a decision. Someone will make a decision to make as much money before they leave. They want to make as much. They want to earn as much money. They want to get a big enough bonus that, yeah, they're just trying to min-max. They're trying to min-max their run in the company. The next 5-6 years, how much money can I make? So I'm going to do as much to make as much product, to make as much profit from our product as possible. And you end up with horrible short-term decision-making that ends up hurting the value of the brand in the long run. Like if this had happened, if this game had happened, the name, like the cultural perception of Resident Evil would be so much worse. It would just, people would basically write it off as just some fucking shit. Just something. And hey, they went with the complete opposite, and guess what? There's a value, there's a long-term value that's overlooked by a lot of these real, like, short-term min-maxers in the industry. There's a long-term value to ingratiating your reputation, to like being the cool guys, being the cool, there's cool developers, right? That will gain you consistency. Maybe it won't get you the most profits, but it will gain you consistency, that people will know you, and in the long term that also creates like a safety cushion in a way. Do you think Platinum would even still be breathing today if they didn't have such a good foundation of games, even though they made like a bunch of stuff and they were really kind of losing it? But like the fact that they were so beloved, I think has been part of, like, there's people who are always going to buy a Platinum game. Would you say that of like some cheap short-term profit pump out a live service? Anthem, no one's oh, it's an EA game, dude, I'm all on it. No one says that. What's sad is they used to say that. Man, EA used to be so cool. Electronic Arts really used to mean something. there's this old thing from when EA used to do when they first started putting games out, because their whole thing was, we're going to be like artists. We're going to prove that games can be art. That was their thing. And so all of their first few years of putting games out, the packaging, because PC games have never had like a standard packaging, and they're pretty much exclusively like a PC developer. Their packaging was like these big like album covers essentially, and all the cover art looked like album art. So if you go look up like EA like album cover, no, that I am not looking for the Lil Uzi Vert. Lil Uzi Vert. Eternal Atake, whatever that is. EA Electronic Arts album cover? Yeah. Like, oh my god, look at the cover for Pinball Construction Set. That looks like a Pink Floyd album. What? What? It looks so cool. Look at like Bill Budge. His name developed by Budge Co. What? Electronic. Let me see the games. Let's see, like their earliest games. Archon, Light in the Dark. That's a great cover. Axis Assassin. That's a cool ass cover. Hard Hat Mac. It is a cover. Mule. Oh my Oh my god, I forgot they put out Mule. EA used to put out Mule, guys. Go play Mule. I used to try to approach women on Tinder with that. I would say like, hey, have you played Mule? That was like my thing. I would be like, I had a couple lines when I was on Tinder. Because, I started with like because, I'm a guy and women never fucking text first because you just gotta kowtow to whatever they want. Oh, you have to earn me. Whatever. You have to be a smooth talker. I don't know. And also have like but like the other thing is like, most women, there's such an imbalance on Tinder, right? On most dating apps. There's such a gender imbalance of men to women that they've got like 50 guys trying to bust down their door every day. Meanwhile, I'm sitting here getting like one match per 2 weeks. So I realized I was like, you got to set yourself apart from all these other guys. So I was like, yeah, I would start with like a boring like, hey, what's up? Like, what? Hey, how are? Or now I try to like say something I noticed in like one of their pictures or something in their bio, to show that I pay attention. Never worked. Didn't get anything. So I'm like, I need a line. So the line that I need like an intro. I need an opening. So the one that I came up with was, if you had to go the rest of your life without food or air, which would it be? It did not work. I thought it was intriguing. I thought it's something that would make you, look twice. Might make you, something. It's kind of like mysterious and cool, right? Like wearing a trench coat. That like women will be like, oh, they keep looking over at me because they're interested in how mysterious I am. It's not because they're afraid of me. Didn't get very far with that. So then my line was like, have you played Mule? They'd be like, what is that? And I'm like, it's just one of the most influential games of all time, published in 1983, developed by Danielle Barry Bunton. One of the what the fuck was one of the formative multiplayer games. And it's, I don't know. I would go on a spiel about Mule, and they fucking wouldn't reply. Go play Mule. That game's so good. Mule deserves a re-release. Can I say that? Mule deserves a re-release. And it's never gotten one. It would be so perfect. Or even just like a recreation. Mule was like a way better Monopoly. Like, Mule is so fun. Go play it. Serious. It's such a gosh darn good time. It's just like it's just a game based on like simple economics of just supply and demand, and then working against other players to gain an advantage. It's fantastic. What was I talking about? Yeah, so what else did I want to mention? Are there any other news stories? Embracer bought Crystal Dynamics, Eidos Montreal, Square Enix Montreal. They're just gonna gobble everything up. They're gonna gobble everything up, guys. Oh god, it's scary, but they haven't done anything bad. It's like I'm on shaky ground with Embracer. I'm waiting for them to pull the mask off and to become like the villains. They haven't done it yet. I'm just waiting with bated breath because I can't put my faith in them. I can't put my faith in a corporation. I'm waiting with bated breath for when they have their heel turn and reveal that they were actually evil all along. They haven't done it yet. And I'm just, when that day comes, I'll be sitting here like, well. I think most people are just inherently distrustful of a company that owns so many things, but like they haven't done anything like evil. They just kind of buy stuff and just sit back and let those developers make games, and like, you want to think they're cool, but like, you just inherently distrust them, which I think is good. I think you should inherently distrust anyone who wants to own that many things. I think you should be inherently distrustful. Like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. The president of the galaxy, what was his name? Beeblebrox? Something Beeblebrox. Like Saffron Beeblebrox, something like that. And the whole gag with him is that he's the president, but he's incredibly stupid. He's extremely dumb. And in actuality, he's just a figurehead, and the galaxy is actually run by a secret, like, group of of people who try to actually make decisions to keep everything running smoothly. And the reasoning for this is anyone who would have, I forgot the quote. I could probably look it up, honestly. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy president quote. Yeah, here it is. Anyone who is capable of getting themselves made president should on no account be allowed to do the job. Yeah. Quote by Douglas Adams. I guess there's another version of it. Yeah. Yeah. So here's another version. I guess this is an idea he rephrased a couple times. One of the major problems, for there are several, one of the many major problems with governing people is that of whom you get to do it. Or rather, of who manages... Fucking pop-up came up. Or rather, of who manages to get people to let them to do it to them. Oh, I love Douglas Adams. He's just... everything he writes is so whimsical. Rather, of who manages to get people to let them do it to them. To summarize, it is a well-known fact that those people who must want to rule people are, ipso facto, those least suited to do it. To summarize the summary, anyone who is capable of getting themselves made president should on no account be allowed to. Oh, that's such a great... Yeah, Restaurant at the End of the Universe by Douglas Adams. It's such a I love the way that he writes this, where it's like he starts off with the most overly wordy way of explaining something that's like intentionally confusing, and he knows it because Douglas Adams is a good writer, so he knows when something is way too wordy, and he starts off with the most wordy thing ever, and then gradually breaks it into more easily understandable terms until you get it. And it seems like the most obvious thing ever. It has this fun effect of it's a very simple, like, clever little idea, but because there's been this huge build-up, like, you start off thinking it's the most complicated thing ever, then he breaks it down into these simpler terms, and you realize it's actually a pretty simple idea to wrap your head around. God, I love Adams. I love Douglas Adams. If you haven't read Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, I would highly recommend them. They are great, extremely clever books. Not even long. You could finish it in like 6 hours total, at least, at most, if you're like a slow reader. They're pretty short, but extremely fun. Want to talk about a game I've been playing recently? So I had a hankering for card games. I've been watching... I got, like, vaguely back into watching videos about Yu-Gi-Oh! And I thought about maybe going back to Yu-Gi-Oh! And then I started watching videos about other card games, like Magic. Magic the Gathering kind of intrigues me, because, I don't know, on one hand, I think a lot of the art is just wonderful. Like, just great to look at. Very pleasing to my eye. And I think many parts of it, like the color system and all that, are neat. And I also think it's interesting. Here's the way that I think of the way I differentiate Magic and Yu-Gi-Oh! And kind of like spirit. Because people, obviously, they're very different games. People will say, like, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is like two people throwing... Excuse me. Magic is like two people going back and forth one after the other after the other. Yu-Gi-Oh is like two people throwing nukes at each other. Or something, some kind of analogy like that. But the way the cards are designed in Magic is intriguing to me, because there's this like totally different perspective, or there's completely different feeling when I look at Magic cards, in the way that Magic cards get experimental versus Yu-Gi-Oh cards. Like, the way I think of this is that, like, Yu-Gi-Oh cards often feel like they're designed by programmers, and Magic cards feel like they're designed by, like, poets or something like that. That's not a knock against either of those. And I just think, like, in Yu-Gi-Oh, you'll see these cards, and a lot of these cards effects are, there's a lot of just, like, you could break this into, like, if-then statements, a lot of, like, variables, a lot of, like, I don't know, it's very technical. Like, the way Yu-Gi-Oh cards are written, it feels very technical in a sense. Like, I should have come up with some better examples. This is just like a random, like, shower thought I was having that I should have developed out more. But so for instance, in Magic, maybe I should use a contrasting example. I remember that there's a card, I think it's called Pithing Needle. So the idea of Pithing Needle is it says, like, I can go look it up. I'm not going to say it from memory. I think we want to remember it from memory. Pithing Needle. MTG. Let's see. As Pithing Needle enters the battlefield, name a card. Activated abilities of sources with the chosen name can't be activated unless they're mana abilities. So basically, you play Pithing Needle, and then you name a card, and then you basically put a silence on all of that card. And that's just, like, maybe that could happen in Yu-Gi-Oh, but it feels so unique. It feels like something you wouldn't see. In Yu-Gi-Oh, it's very, like, negate, immune, destroy, like, I don't know. The way that, maybe it's just because I understand Yu-Gi-Oh more. And I find that fascinating about Magic, is that they feel like, okay, here's something. For instance, Magic does these ridiculous mechanics that they fucking add in. In Yu-Gi-Oh, whenever they add a new mechanic, it's always just like a new kind of summoning that's just like way faster or something like that. And some of them are, you know, they're a little outside the box, or they're interesting. Like, I always liked Xyz summoning, the idea of a card, like a monster card, where you need like 2 or more monsters or something like that to make it. Like, just two like level 4 monsters, but you don't just throw those monsters into, like, the graveyard like usual, or with like a fusion summon or a synchro summon. With an Xyz monster, the materials that are used to make it go, like, on a stack underneath the monster, and then they all have, like, these activated abilities that essentially use the materials as, like, ammo. So, like, negate in effect, like you have to take out one of those cards from underneath your Xyz monster to activate, like, oh, I'll negate that effect, or I'll use this to summon this card, or something like that. Like, I think that's a cool concept. Using fusion materials, essentially, as, like, ammo for an ability is cool. Like, you can only use it so many times, or somehow where you can, like, attach additional materials to it. It's, like, a cool idea. Magic, like, they added stickers or something like that. There's some bizarre, weird mechanics. And the one that sticks, it's not even a mechanic, but it's like this thing they did. Apparently back in, like, the 2000s, there was this set of cards. And the idea of this set was that it was Magic cards from the future. Not like the cards themselves were, like, futuristic themed. Maybe some of them might have been. But literally, like, the idea was that the cards you were holding, the literal card itself came from the future. So they had, like, a different design, that looks like really, it's not great. It's very like Y2K futuristic aesthetic, but like not very good. And so in that, so I found out about this card, and the idea of the card is that it gains like stats for every different type of card that is in their version of the graveyard. I forgot what it's called, the discard pile. So, you know, Magic has like creature cards, it's got land cards. So it's not like every card in the graveyard, it's every type. So if there's like 5 different types of cards, then it would get like +5/+5, for instance. And it had in its effect examples of what card types were, just to make it clear, like creatures, lands, instants, I think is another term. And one of them was planeswalkers. Now, if you play Magic today, you'll just know what planeswalkers are because they've been a part of the game for forever. That card was printed before planeswalkers existed. And I think there's another kind of card in that in its text that had not been like released yet, like a new kind of card. So it was like a teaser. It was like a teaser of a new kind of card type that they were adding in a way later expansion. That's wild. What? It's so silly, but because it's from the future, that's why they had it listed. That's so funny. That's crazy. You would never see that in Yu-Gi-Oh. You would just see. What would you see in Yu-Gi-Oh? I don't know. Maybe Magic seems more interesting to me just because I don't know a lot about it. I'm sure Yu-Gi-Oh has a ton of unique things that are cool to it, and Yu-Gi-Oh is quite fun. If you're playing that one version that I don't know if it still exists. My friends and I found this online like Yu-Gi-Oh thing. Well, it wasn't online. You downloaded it. It was called Dawn of a New Era, I think, and it was literally just a Yu-Gi-Oh game. It was literally just like the dream. It was you can just build a deck of whatever cards you wanted, and you can play online. I don't know if that was like does that still exist? Yu-Gi-Oh! Dawn of a New Era. Spyware. I hope this wasn't spyware. The second search result is spyware. Oh no. Oh no. I guess there's a better version called Percy. Okay, cool. Oh, I guess they had... I guess the people who read Dawn of a New Era weren't great, but okay. Anyway, we used to play that. We used to play that during class while we were supposed to be paying attention. We would just be fucking running it. Yeah, that was fun as fuck. So I got on this card game kick, and because I used to play Hearthstone, my main 2 experiences with card games are Hearthstone and Yu-Gi-Oh. And I heard about, hey, there is a Warhammer 40k card game, like digital card game, that's apparently pretty good. And I was like, oh, really? That's interesting, because there's a lot of crap. There's a lot of just shovelware 40k games, and you see this. It's like a mobile game. It's like ported to PC, and my hopes weren't particularly high, and I started playing it, but just because I was curious, you know, because I heard, oh, apparently it's good. It's called, I should mention what the game's called. The Horus Heresy Legions. I I guess so. The Horus Heresy was a time period. It's technically Warhammer 30K. The Horus Heresy was basically like the big civil war that happened in the Empire, the Imperium of Man. That is where the Chaos Space Marines and all that came from. So, the Horus Heresy Legions is a card game that's set in that era of 40K. 30K. Takes place 10,000 years before 40K. It is Warhammer Hearthstone. There is no better way I can describe it. It is literally, if you've played Hearthstone, excuse me, I won't say you've played Legions. Oh, Jesus. I'm like, all this fucking air's coming up from my stomach. I won't say that you've played Legions, but you will have no problem slotting in. It's got very similar setup. You've got, like, just in terms of rules, like, it's got, instead of mana, they have energy, which works the exact same way, except you technically start your first turn with 2 energy. You've got decks of around 30 cards, which with max 3 cards? How many can you run in Hearthstone? 2 of a card? I don't remember. Yeah, you can run like max of 3 cards, I'm pretty sure. Don't quote me on that. I'm not an expert on this game. I've just been playing it for the last week or so. Same structure of like your turn, my turn, your turn, my turn. You've got minions, which are called troops. You've got spells, which are called tactics. You've got a lot of very similar types of mechanics, which, again, Hearthstone also just took a lot of those from Magic. Hearthstone was just trying to be a more accessible Magic the Gathering. Also, ridiculous amount of keywords. And I should mention now that there are a lot of ways in which Legions does differentiate itself from other games. Specifically Hearthstone. One of those, the most notable one, is the Warlords. So, in Hearthstone, or pretty much every other card game, the player character is just the player character. They're just the player. They're kind of their own thing. In Legions, there is what's called a Warlord. Warlords you can sort of think of as that is your player character. It's almost like in a JRPG or something. When, like, the main party member dies, you get, like, a game over. The Warlord is, like, the player character. If the player character was on the board as an entity, they all have, like, an attack, a health value, and unique traits and active abilities. And every faction has like 3 or 4 or more different warlords, and every single one of them is different. So there is kind of like I do like that. The warlords are kind of one way that this game kind of leans into one of its biggest strengths, which is how would I describe this? The flavor or the diversity in the game. I don't know exactly how to describe it, but I have this kind of thing. I think this is a very popular sentiment in the 40K community, where if you're making a 40K game, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. You just need to take like an existing type of game or something like that and just give it a 40K skin and make it include things that bend it enough just to make it reflect the unique parts of the property. Like, you don't have to go crazy. Like, Space Marine was not it was extremely of its time, It's the most 7th gen shooter, as I call it. But it has enough things that just make it feel like 40K that we're able to set it apart. Legions does that really well. Every warlord is like an example, or it's an excuse for them to take like a significant character from the lore and give them like a presence in a way that makes them feel different and unique and shows off like the specifics of their faction. And that is it adds a lot of like a lot of things just make sense. What am I talking about? Makes sense. I'm hitting that point where I'm slowing down a little bit. A lot of things just make sense in the way that they're very strongly characterized, I could say, both in terms of actual like things like artwork and voice lines, but also just gameplay. I think all of the legions are very well captured. This game has a lot, arguably too many factions. So the way that it works is also kind of similar to Hearthstone. Same way that Hearthstone has like 9 or 10 different classes, and you can make a deck of those cards, of those class cards, and then there's like there's a pool of like neutral cards that anyone can use. Legions works pretty much the same way. You basically start off building a deck by selecting a warlord, which is then, okay, if you pick 1,000 Suns warlord, you're going to be running 1,000 Suns deck. So then you can pick cards that from the 1,000 Suns pool that you own, or a couple different, there's like 2 or 3 different factions of neutrals, which is like Imperial Army, Chaos, and like one other, I think. So those are ones that like anyone can run in their deck. And every faction, Legions is like keyword city, dude. Every single faction, like I've been doing so much reading and just remembering what mechanics are. Not every faction has a mechanic that's like 100% unique to them, but they all have something that is at least like they heavily specialize in. So like, for instance, what's like a unique mechanic? Like the 1,000 Suns, as far as I know, might be wrong on this, but as far as I know, the 1,000 Suns are the only ones who have access to the psychic energy mechanic. And what that is that because the 1,000 Suns were like the most significant like psychers in of the Space Marines, they have they have a lot of cards which generate basically a second resource for them of psychic energy. So like at the start of every turn, start of your turn, when you if you have cards with like a specific keyword like psychic and then a number, you'll gain that number of psychic energy at the start, and then you can spend that on spells. Essentially, they're called tactics in this, but I'll say spells because that's what everyone understands. On spells that specifically use that. And I figured out like this entire strategy going through some of the single player content of just amassing a ton of psychic energy to use on removal spells and like buffing up a bunch of characters. So every faction has some kind of like, and then for like a non-exclusive thing, for instance, wait, what? Am I remembering this correctly? I don't know. So big Legions fans call me out in the comments, but I believe that the terror keyword is something that is not like exclusive to Night Lords, but it is very heavy in their theming. So like the Night Lords are one of the traitor legions, and their whole deal was that they were basically all into terror tactics. They instead of like storming a city or something to force them to surrender or just obliterate them, what they would do is they would kidnap 100 civilians and then flay them alive and then put them up on posts around the city with like big speakers broadcasting their dying wails until everyone in the city was so horrified and scared that they just surrendered. And they would take everyone alive, and the entire city would be preserved. Funny enough, I believe the Night Lords were the one traitor legion that was not corrupted by chaos. Entirely, at least. I think some of them were, but they were not corrupted, not like everyone else was like, yo, this Chaos God or Chaos Undivided, pretty sick. Night Lords, they just rebelled because everyone hated them, and they were like, fuck it, whatever. They were just the emo ones, because everyone thought that they were big assholes. Their whole point was like, well, we preserve more lives with terror tactics, technically. Like, because other Space Marine legions will just orbital bombard whole cities and just obliterate everyone. And they're like, well, this way we keep most people alive and we preserve the whole city, for instance. So the Night Lords specialize in the terror keyword, and the terror keyword is like if you're attacking a unit that has a lower attack stat than you do, then if the unit with terror is attacking a unit that has a lower attack stat, they don't take any damage back from it. So you want to get these like higher damage. You just want to like exploit. You just want to target weaker, lower attack value troops from your opponent. Like, yeah, they would specialize in that. Everyone has like I don't know if it's exclusive to them, but that's like their thing. There are arguably too many legions, too many factions. I believe it only launched with 10 like a year or two ago, but it's steadily expanded to include more and more until the present day, where, let's see, I'm pretty sure, I think that they've got every traitor and loyalist legion of the Marines, so that's already 18. Excuse me. It's already 18 factions. And then there's like the Imperial Army, there's the Chaos ones, there's another neutral thing that I forget. There's a bunch of... They added like Custodes, Sisters of Silence, which are their own thing, even though I would think that Custodes and Sisters would work together, but or that they would be part of like the same thing, because they usually are like tag team. What else? Oh yeah, just like specific, like Defenders of Caliban, just like like a couple like just littler factions from the Heresy, and Night Houses. There's Loyalist Night Houses and Chaos Night Houses, and the Knights work completely differently, because the Knights are like the big mechs, and Knights, well, not the biggest mechs, but pretty big mechs. So the way that Knights work is actually pretty interesting. They're basically, there's like a Knight unit, and it has like zero attack and zero attack and like whatever health value. And then next to it has like two weapons. It has two weapons, and the weapons have like their own, like you have to queue them up or something. Basically, they don't have like an attack stat, but their whole deal is just prepping these abilities and then just using, they can like swap out different weapons. That's what some of their cards are. And it's just different kinds of removal and dealing damage. So the idea is that they're these giant hulking high health things that don't have like attack stats, but they have these like special weapons that they're literally next side by side with them, and the artwork makes it look like it's actually like the arm of the Titan, or the Knight, I should say. and they're just gunning things down. And they have all these unique mechanics, like stunning themselves after they use an ability or something like that to like balance out some of the power that they can output. Just like really interesting ways of differentiating the different legions. Honestly, it's a lot as like someone who's pretty new to it and who's just kind of been messing around. I will say that as someone who has no intention of spending money on the game, it feels very fair. I was kind of expecting a predatory monetization thing, and there is an opportunity to do that. You can spend a bunch of real money on like card packs and stuff like that, but I haven't quite felt the need to. And the game also provides pretty satisfactory single-player content. Sort of. I'll explain. So, one of the game types is what's called a campaign. So the campaign is basically where they will take a battle from the canon, from the lore, and you'll be playing essentially from the perspective of one of the factions involved in there. So for instance, the last one that was just out, or the one that I was going through, was the Burning of Prospero, which is the Thousand Suns versus the Space Wolves. And you play as the Thousand Suns, and the idea is that there's essentially 3 acts. And each act, you're taking control of a different warlord from that event. So in the first one, you're like this one guy, and you go through 6 different battles, and it has like a draft system. So you're versus the AI, and every AI is like... So I think some of them are like specifically made just for the single player, even. And they will... basically, you play out a game. You kind of get a hang of the parts of the deck or the unique mechanics that they've got going on. And then once you've won a battle, it takes you to a card draft. So you add cards to your deck from a selection of 3 different choices of 3 cards each. So they'll all be like themed around something, and it'll usually be like, here's the one that's specific to, like, for instance, Thousand Suns. Here's one that's kind of mixed. Here's one that's all like neutrals. So you kind of like get to look at each one of them. It's like, so I can pick 3,000 Suns cards. I can pick like this one that maybe doesn't fit in exactly with the deck, but it's like useful potentially, like a useful kind of removal. You kind of like make, and they specifically kind of I noticed they're very intentional with some of these card choices, because it'll be like, I'll notice 2 of the cards will be ones that I really want. I'm like, oh, like once I got a handle on kind of how I was playing the deck, I was like, oh, once I read the card text, I was like, yeah, these would be really good. And there's one you really would not like not useful, compared to ones that maybe, like, you know, the other maybe 2 draft picks are like, oh, maybe it doesn't synergize quite as well, but it's like good. And maybe this one's kind of like a wild card, like maybe this could be useful. So you're making these decisions, and every time you get defeated, you have the option to restart from the beginning and do a new draft. So you go through like 6 different battles, and at the end, you beat the, I guess, boss, and you get a rewards crate, and there is a very, very high likelihood that if you do all 3 acts, you'll get at least 1 warlord from that faction. So like I got one of the warlords and a duplicate of him. So you go through, you play like 3 different acts, and each one has you playing a different warlord from that faction. And then you finish. And to be honest, I had a good time with it. I played the Thousand Sun ones. I beat that one. I beat the current one, which is the Blood Angels campaign. And it was a good time. My one complaint is that the rotation takes way too long. So you'll be able to play the campaign for 2 weeks, and then it goes to the next one. It goes to the next like faction or legion that's the focus. 2 weeks is too long. Like straight up, it is not. If it was like a week and a half, I could maybe excuse that, but 2 weeks is a lot. That's just a few days too many. Like that's too long. It's not difficult enough to warrant that, is what I'm saying. Maybe for someone who isn't like me and can just sit on their ass and play a card game for like 5 hours straight or something like that. Maybe that's like, you know, people need that. But for me, it's like I beat the Blood Angels one and there's still like a week and a half left that I gotta wait for the next thing. And it's like on the upside, you know, playing it does get, because you could replay it as many times as you want. You can get like a lot of cards from that faction if you really like them. Now, I didn't really click with Thousand Suns, didn't really click with Blood Angels, so I haven't gone back and played them, but you know, there are factions that interest me either for lore reasons or potentially gameplay reasons. Obviously, I want to check out the Custodes, want to check out the Iron Hands, maybe some of the Iron Warriors too. I've been coming around to the Iron Warriors in lore. I think their aesthetic is cool, with like that yellow and black striped like danger or like caution, kind of like industrial motif that they have on like their shoulder guards and their vehicles and their guns and stuff like that. I think that's a cool pattern. And I think it's funny that throughout the while they were loyalists, they just did all the dirty, shitty jobs of they're the siege masters. Because, like, Perturabo was the only one who would put up with that, and he got all fucking angsty. He's like, you always give me and my legion the worst wars to wage. Why? Because you are my strongest soldier. He really did. The Emperor really did say, because you're my strongest soldier, Perturabo. That was not good enough for him. He was sick of fucking grinding away for months in siege warfare. Yeah, no, I mean, there's the legions that I'm interested in. So when they're not on rotation, it's like, not as interested, you know? But it is still fun to just like see what the other ones play like. You just get a chance to see what some cards do, and kind of like maybe how you kind of want to play it. Like, for instance, the Blood Angels, they have a mechanic that I'm pretty sure is unique to them called Requiem, which is, if it's an effect, a Requiem effect will trigger when a unit next to that card dies. So you have to be kind of mindful of like where you set up your cards, where you're like, okay, maybe I can intentionally set up the board so I can run this troop into this other one to kill it, have my troop die, and then get the bonus, like it'll be like Requiem, gain +2/+2 or something like that, and get a stat buff on the minion I just dropped. It felt very slow. I wonder if it's almost like, I think that's like a reference to like the Black Rage, actually. Which I don't know if that really makes any sense, because this is technically, I guess, pre-Sanguinius dying, but the Blood Angels have this like disorder essentially called the Black Rage, which is where Sanguinius got murked during the Heresy, their Primarch, and because they were all so close to him, they will intermittently relive the suffering he felt when he died, and it'll drive them insane. It's called the Black Rage. It's like I was like, is that what that is? Yeah, there's other things like, oh, the Space Wolves. They have, because they're wolves, guys. They're like wolves. There's 100 jokes to be made about how the writers really overdo it with the wolf thing with the Space Wolves. I get that they're wolves, but you do it a little much. But they have like a mechanic called pack, which is a pack effect will trigger when like a friendly unit attacks. So it'll be like pack, deal 1 damage to a random enemy. So they just build up these big boards where they're just swarming people, and they have this protection with this other mechanic that I think is at least heavily themed around them, which is called ward, which makes them unable to be targeted by spell effects, essentially, which I think is also a reference to the fact that they're rivals with the Thousand Sons, so they're like immune to their witchcraft. Lots of like fun little things that have like and end up with these big gameplay themes. Overall, the game is quite fun. It's definitely a lot if you're just jumping into it feet first, just with the amount of cards there are, the amount of like different warlords, kind of decks, and also the fact that you're sort of like building up. The fact that you don't get to try out decks until like something like a campaign comes around means that I just feel like I have a not a super great grasp on how everyone plays, essentially. It's like I don't exactly know what kind of a deck would seem fun to me just because I haven't seen enough. Also, it's a very obscure game. It's pretty much only played by 40k fans. It's not hard to get a game with a bot. Not like a no, as in like an official bot that I'll just run into. If you're playing kind of later, you're not playing on ranked, I'll get matched with some bots. It's a fun way to just farm some daily challenges or stuff like that. The game, like as a card game, it is so like there's kind of like minor things that just come with a game being very developed. Like it's a lot of information to absorb, but the gameplay itself is really good. Like it is actually a very competent, well-made card game. There's clearly a lot of thought put into the design of certain factions and certain cards, not just with like their lore kind of theming, but also just the mechanics. Like I've had a lot of games that were extremely close, and when I figured out a way to kind of like outplay my opponent or set up a really strong board or something like that, I felt really good. I was like, damn, I did it. That was actually really close. That was very satisfying to win. That was tense. It is like a well-made card game. If I'm going to be honest, the biggest way that it suffers, the biggest negative against the game is probably the presentation. So for one, the artwork on the cards is quite good. It's been done by a variety of different artists, but the art style is different art styles on things. So the artwork doesn't have like a consistent style, so to speak, but the art is all very good. So not a knock against that. When I say presentation, I'm talking about things like UI, visual effects, animations, sound effects, some of the voice acting. Some of it's not even bad. It's just, it's not quite, it's trying and it's not quite hitting that level of polish that something like Hearthstone does. Like Hearthstone, everything's got a cool animation. Everything's got a voice line, like when you drop the card down, when you attack with the card, when the card dies. The production value is super high with Hearthstone. Legions, it's like you can tell it's more budget. And there's just things like, oh, the gunshot effects are like kind of stock looking. They just have like these kind of stock looking bullet holes show up. The animations can be a little bit stiff and like it looks keyframed or something like that. And some of the voice acting, well, the game does not have a lot of voice acting. It's mainly in the warlords. Mainly the warlords have it. Not all of it is great. Some of it's a little awkward. Some of it's good. Like I think the guy who plays Horus is pretty good. The main kind of the starter warlord that you get, Lokar from the Sons of Horus. He's that's the one that I've been playing the most of, just because I don't have enough cards for other factions yet. He's also pretty. He's pretty fine. But yeah, some of it is like you can tell there's like a level of polish. Nothing looks straight up bad where I'm like, ugh. It's just budget, you know? And that's fine, because it is a budget game. You shouldn't expect something like Hearthstone production value, right? You shouldn't expect that level of polish. But it is like noticeable, and it's kind of the biggest knock against the game that I have. And for that's not there are much worse problems to have than your bullet hole effects, excuse me, look kind of stock photo. The reason I was interested in it, the reason I kind of got in, well, one of the things that's interested me, I should say, in going to this, is that the developer is making another one. They're making another one, but not this time, not exclusive to the Horus Heresy, just a general 40k digital card game called Warp Forged, which I will most definitely be checking out after my overall pretty positive experience with Legions. It is, I think, sometime next year. I said it's dropping. They announced it, I think, at the Warhammer Skulls event, but essentially, yeah, it's what it says. It's exactly how I described it. It's just like Legions, except it's not limited to just the Horus Heresy and the Space Marine Legions and all that. Which I think is a very good decision. I'm not sure exactly how the way that Legions came about, or if it was their choice to limit themselves to the Heresy. But the thing about, I'm not crazy about 30k and the Heresy as a setting necessarily. There's definitely cool things to it. Obviously the Primarchs are cool. All that stuff is neat, but 40k has so many like cool races and factions and things that would be perfect to translate into a card game. And the Heresy is just a little limited. It's a niche within an already niche series, right? With, the general 40k setting, you get to throw in the Necrons, you get to throw in the Orcs, you get to throw in the Eldar, all these cool things. You could summon a big, the Avatar of Cain when you're playing the Eldar deck. You get to basically do you get to swarm the board with Tyranids. That's like cool stuff, right? That's that 40k flavor that you're looking for. And I think expanding to that is a cogent move. Also, I really like the word cogent. I was thinking about it thinking about it either today or yesterday, and that's why it's in my vocabulary. Also, Legions just has bad SEO. Just straight up. Like, I was trying to look up resources for the game, and looking up Horus Heresy Legions gets me the legions in the Horus Heresy. Like, the actual Space Marine legions in the lore. Like, I wasn't getting results about the game. I had to scroll down for it to find it. Something like Warp Forged is a much better name. First of all, it tells you 40k Warp Forged tells you that it is 40k, and that it is. It's like a made-up word, but you get an idea for it. You get like, oh, it's like Warforged, but Warp? Oh, Warp's a 40k thing. And it's like, because it's a made-up word, it's not going to be overlapped with any other terms, especially from your own property. Like, imagine, I don't know. For some reason, the first example that comes to mind is the Mega Man Fully Charged, the Cartoon Network series. Imagine if that show was just called Mega Man. You would have to have like Mega Man Cartoon Network. Like, everyone calls like the Ruby Spears Mega Man cartoon. Everyone calls it the Ruby Spears Mega Man cartoon, because it was just called Mega Man. Like, you have to like specify. So yeah, much better. I'm looking forward to that. And I don't know, they haven't shown off like a ton of gameplay or anything yet. They literally just had like a trailer and some screenshots, but from the looks of it, I'm hoping that it has a slightly higher production value, because I think it would be cool. Like, if you're interested in the 40k universe, that would be a cool little way. Like, for instance, I wasn't interested at all in Warcraft until I started playing Hearthstone, and I didn't start playing World of Warcraft or the originals, but it at least exposed me to it, and I know a little bit about it, so I have some background with it, essentially. But I like the direction so far that they're moving with Warpforge. Looks like they're going to launch with at least 5 different... I don't know how they're going to split it up exactly. But... if like in terms of sub factions, because the sub factions are where a lot of the flavor tends to come from, I guess. So, but it looks like Space Marines, Chaos Space Marines, Orcs, Eldar, and Necrons and Tyranids. And I'm like, great starting roster for a 40k game. Fantastic. Well, I don't have much else to say. Horus Heresy Legions, surprisingly quite good. It's free. You can play it pretty casually and not feel super overwhelmed by pay to wins, as far as I can tell. Resident Evil 7 almost sucked. And yeah, I don't have anything else to say. A lot of my time has been just devoted to playing a certain game for the next video, which you will see this upcoming week. So be on the lookout for that. Go check out the Clips channel down below. It'll just be clips from like last episode and probably this episode too. Yeah. Bye.